It's 3 letters. It's one word. And the word is ACT. The acronym is Action Changes Things.
Yeah, I like that.
Just stay with that and more will be revealed.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the JeffMara podcast. Tonight, we have an amazing guest. His name is Dan Williams. Dan survived open heart surgery where his life was revived multiple times during the operation and came back to life. He was also a USA ranking masters track athlete, receiving All-American honors from the United States Track and Field Association. And tonight, we are going to try to get Dan's story and how he can inspire us to live a better life. Dan, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Jeff, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
And your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I want to hear all about you. What happened to you? So when you were about to have heart surgery, what year was that and what was going on for you? And maybe you can lead us through that.
Yeah, good question for context. So it was December of 2012.
All right.
That was the infamous Christmas that I spent recovering and almost not being able to be around to have this interview tonight. So December 2012, and there's the short version is that I did have heart issues 10 years earlier and had a stent put in, and a stent is not it's not invasive per se. It's not open heart surgery. They go in and unclog arteries. And so I did have, and there's, some heart history in my family. And the 3 components of as experts and physicians have shared with me of, what contributes to a heart attack? And, the 3 main drivers would be your diet, your exercise routine, and stress.
Yeah.
I take that back. Diet and exercise are kind of combined into one. So it'd be diet and exercise, stress, and then heredity, your genes and your heritage, and that gets passed down, and that you can't control. So I did have some experience with it because back in 2003, I wasn't having a good diet. I wasn't exercising, not much. And I was under a tremendous amount of stress. And so the 2 that you can control, I did have some experience with. And that's even with running back in my late 20s and early 30s, 3 marathons. So, I had been in fit. I knew what it was to have an active lifestyle, but life happens. And so over my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I started to slide back into old habits. And in December of 2012, I had a heart attack. It wasn't, there's different gradations, and the heart cardiologist. I went into. I'm a veteran, and I went into the Martinsburg Veterans Hospital, which is my primary care. And then that's when they let me know I had pneumonia at the time. I thought it might have been pneumonia or something going on. They said, no, you have pneumonia, but you also just had a heart attack. So I was in Martinsburg for a week in their ICU unit, waiting to be admitted to the DC Veterans Hospital, where they do the cardiac procedures. So at that time, and I made reference to an earlier stent. They said, I think we're just going to need to stent you up. It's not at that point. I said, well, that works for me. So Jeff, I went in thinking I was going to be an outpatient, but I became an inpatient because during that stent procedure, I had multiple heart attacks on the table. Now I'm unconscious, right?
Right.
They put you out. I have multiple heart attacks on the stent table. Now this is all relayed to me later on. I was the cardiologist is story was relayed to me, called up to the main heart surgeon and said, it was one of these Houston, we have a problem type calls. I mean, and just had his hands up and said, I need to get you down here because I don't know what to do with this patient.
Mm-hmm.
And they ballooned me up, meaning that they did get a balloon into the vessels that night to just keep me alive and, sedated until a 9-hour operation the following day, of which one of my friends asked how I was doing or how I did. And he goes, well, I've already lost them twice on the table. So that was, and I had to be revived. So that operation was one thing and pretty serious. And I wasn't going in thinking that was going to be the process. And I woke up, Jeff. I didn't wake up. I was awakened 5 days later. My wrists were tied to the bed rails. I was intubated, and I had no clue where I was at. I was scared. Scared, to say I was scared would be an understatement. I was terrified, and could not speak. And typically when one of my daughters, I have 4 beautiful daughters, and one of them asked, well, the doctor shared, well, I never operate with anyone in one of 3 conditions, just had heart attack, has pneumonia, or what was the third condition, on blood thinners. And then, so I had all 3. And so my daughter, one's daughter, 4 of them were consulting with the doctor. He said, well, doc, why did you operate on my dad? I mean, if you don't operate on any one of those 3, he said, I had no choice. Your dad was going to die. So through a courageous heart surgeon and prayers and being graced by God, I am in extra innings and sharing my story, New Heart for Life, or that's part 1 of the story.
What was your diet and your physical fitness level leading up to this, before this happened? I mean, you said you slipped back into old habits. Can you be a little bit more, descriptive about it? Like, were you just eating whatever and you completely stopped exercising, and what was going on?
Yeah, so it was on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being where I was at previously with, my marathoning. I was at a 1.5 or 2. I was in sales leadership positions, and which carries its own set of stress. I wasn't eating properly. I didn't, and I wasn't very conscious. I felt like I was Teflon man, I guess. And I was in denial and, thinking, well, I've been in shape before and I've run 3 marathons. So, and that's a message for the audience and for everybody that, nobody's immune from this. And heart attack is, can be binary. I mean, it's, cancer, takes a lot of us and our families, and we all can relate. But when you have a heart attack, you sometimes, a lot of times, don't get a second chance.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, I was just in denial and kind of in my own little world with not subscribing to what others were suggesting.
Right. So how has your diet changed now?
Yeah. So my whole lifestyle has changed. I did recover, in terms of just, after the heart surgery and a month in the hospital and, going through that process. And, it was about 3 months. No, I went back to work within a month and a half. So I did try to get back into the game. And then the asterisk on that story is that I fell back into my old habits. You thought I would have broke the code. So for about another 2 years, 3 years, I started backsliding. Can you believe it? Like, hello, what is this? What does this guy need?
Yeah.
I mean, I've already sent this message, right? And so, to answer your question, Jeff, I made a decision. Let me retract that. I was at the dinner table one night and I was not feeling good about myself. And I often talk about with principles of fitness, you know it when you know it, and an inner voice, will in the committee will talk to you. You try to shut that committee up, but they're there. And I knew that I was really creeping back into another incident where I may not get a second chance. And a voice came to me one night after I pushed myself back from the dinner table. And that voice said, as clearly as we are having this conversation tonight, Danny, you are going to die. What are you doing? You've been graced with a gift so freely, and here you are right back into your old habits. And it was at that profound moment that was my bottom. My bottom was not the heart attack and the recovery and the near-death experiences. It was that voice and me knowing that you know it when you know it. And at that point in time, I made a decision to reconnect with my passion for running. And I started walking for 5 minutes, which led to 10, which led to 20, jogging for 10, which led to 20, and then 30. I came across in one of the what I talk about when you make that decision, which is the first principle in the 21 fitness principles that I'm putting out there in terms of video inspiration, and I'm the poster child for here's what not to do. Once you make that decision, the universe opens up and things will come your way that and with fitness or with anything in life, is you don't have to have it all figured out and understood. All I did was make a decision that I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And that I wanted to rekindle my fitness program with running, which was my passion. And once that happened, I came across shortly thereafter a master's track team. Now, masters, for the audience, is anyone over 50. I'm proud to share. This is the only sport where you really brag about your age as you get older. I turned 71 yesterday.
Oh, wow. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. So 71. So I'm in the, last year was a big deal because that put me in the 70 to 74-year-old masters track group. But masters athletes over 50 years old, and got a coach, got teammates, and now in a long way around the picnic bend to answer your question. My habits with eating and lifestyle, I've never felt healthier. I've never felt more vibrant. I've never felt more alive. And part of that is certainly the dedication and the commitment to training and competing nationally and internationally. But it's also, as I share this message and story, that your body will crave the things that it desires and it needs. And so my fitness nutritional diet is, I used to love sweets. I still, they still talk to me.
Sure.
I don't do ice cream anymore. I don't do soda, not because I've got this great amount of willpower. I don't have much willpower. It's because, Jeff, that your body really will start to regulate itself and take in the things that will match where your fitness level is.
Do you mostly run marathons? Is that the type of running you do? Do you do a lot of long distance jogging?
Yeah, great question. And because the way I've described it, you might think that I would. My marathon days are gone.
Okay.
I joke that on a good day, when I'm feeling really good, I can drive 26.2 miles without taking a break. But what I've done is when I was in school, and I was also blessed with some speed. I ran 400 meters. So what I now compete in my niche is the 200 and 400 meters.
Obviously, you don't know anything about me. We've never met before. And for the audience, I've never met Dan before. He doesn't know much about me. Besides doing podcasts, I am a licensed chiropractor. And I'm I'm into fitness, into diet, so I have a pretty good background on this. Have you heard of the peak 8 exercise? And if so, do you practice that?
I haven't. Share it with me.
What the peak 8 exercise is that you do a cardiovascular exercise, either sprinting or on a spin bicycle or some kind of those multiple stair. It's like a stair climber but with hands for 30 seconds, and then you walk for 90 seconds. And you do that 8 times. And I guess it puts your body in this kind of confusion, fight or flight state. But if you can really on that 30 seconds pump, work out as hard as you can, I mean, just full speed, crank it, get your blood circulating and put a lot of effort into it. You do all this 8 times. That's why it's peak 8. But the research shows that you will get much more benefits from that. Which is what's the time come out? That's 1.5 minutes times 8. What is that about? I don't know, 13 minutes, something like that. Anyways, you'll get much more benefit out of that than you would jogging for a half hour.
This is really interesting. I'm going to research the term, and then we've got some conversation around it. What is the time frame? So when you're doing these bursts, how long is it recommended in the peak 8 that you do that?
Well, it's 30 seconds is what I can remember.
30 seconds.
It's a 30-second sprint, and then you go you don't stop. You just kind of stop sprinting and walk for 90.
Walk for 90.
And then you have to keep a stopwatch with you. And I'm kind of on the lazy side, and that's kind of one of the exercises I do. So I know that I'm not going to run as hard as I can, but I run uphill.
Okay.
So I'm running up a hill, so it's forcing me to, to put out quite a bit of effort. And then I just walk down the hill. And I'll do that 8 times.
This is educational, and it's also encouraging because what we do at practice and what I started with Master's Track is something similar. And, I didn't connect with the term peak 8, but I like that. I like the peak 8. I connected with, and what we do is HIIT. Familiar with HIIT?
I'm not familiar with that, but there may be similar but different terminology.
Yeah. So we're sharing kind of the same basis. HIIT is high intensity interval training.
Right. Yeah, that's it. It's the same thing, basically.
Right,
yes.
same thing.
Yeah.
And you're right, and you are so right and spot on, because what we do is we'll run 200 meters. Now I've had different variations of this, and I've learned to try to adapt because I've overdone it. But I used to do, when I first started, of course, this is part of the principle, is baby steps, but or kind of going phases. Our practice would be 10 200. So we would run a 200 meters, and the time, would be anywhere between 40 and 38 to 42, 43 seconds for 200 meters. And then we would walk a 200 meters, right? So, and then that was actually a little too much. I then got under a coach, a real skilled coach who understood technique. He understood more of the masters. And now our HIIT or peak 8 is more like 3 150s, 3 200s. He really is pretty more conservative. Now we do drills before practice and other things, but that intensity of raising that heart level, and I love the fact that you shared that you do it on hills, because
that's the lazy man's way.
No, it's not. Just with this, lockdown that we're in, I came across some trails in our neighborhood that, this is kind of one of the things, like, never right in my neighborhood. And it's, it reminds me of our cross country days, but it's a hill incline. It's about 90 meters, right? So, and it's all on kind of chipped wood. I mean, it's just perfect. And so my interval training now, I will do some out at the track, but I'm really enjoying the hill interval training. Yeah. Because a 90 meters is probably equal, I don't know, to 150 or 200 meters, but I'm really enjoying that because it does get that blood blood pumping, and
Mhm.
it's a beautiful exercise. And it's intense, but it doesn't have a longevity to it. I mean, I
Right.
just, jogging for me is boring.
Yeah.
I don't like to jog. Do it to warm up, but and I'm past the days of running any kind of distance. So it's short and sweet, and the rewards are just unbelievable.
Yeah, I also think that it's, long distance running, it can be, I'm not saying it is for everybody, but can be kind of, I think, long term hard on your body, on your knees.
Mm-hmm.
And some
Oh
people even
yeah,
say it's even hard on your heart.
yeah, yeah.
I know. So I don't know. Here's another interesting thing I want to ask you. And since you have a running coach, I heard this. I'm not a professional runner, not even close to being, but I think I heard this in school. They did this for the Olympic athletes, that your muscles will only fire so fast, and that's it. So your speed
Hmm.
is only a certain speed. But I heard that what they did for the Olympics is to get people to run faster than they normally could, and
Hmm.
to retrain them is they would have them run a downward slope.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they would actually, that would put them at running faster than they could on a flat
Hmm.
plane, right? To
Exactly.
kind
Yeah.
of like reset the muscles. Do you know anything about that, or have you ever trained that way?
It's the first time I've heard it. Um, and I do know that running downhill, I mean, back to the marathoning days, uh, you would think is more strenuous on your muscles and knees than running uphill, and it takes a lot of effort to brace and to keep your balance and whatnot. But I never have heard that. Um, it's an interesting concept, and I'll run it by my coach. And he's a technician. I mean, he's very technical, and he talks about when we do our drills. Uh, and this is something I was oblivious to before I got under his guidance. He says we do a set of drills, and he talks about you need, and as a chiropractor and with your background, you can sure relate to this. Um, he says what it does, it turns on your nervous system. It alerts your nervous system that you're about to get ready to do something. So that's where you kind of help stay uninjured and get your body kind of like send signals literally and rewire your nervous system. Um, but I will ask my coach about that in terms of increasing speed. I do know there's slow twitch muscles, for a long distance runner, and there's fast twitch muscles. And your speed, I always felt that, you lose speed as you age. I can tell you, I can tell you firsthand that happens.
Yeah.
I ran a 50, let's call it a 50.5 second 400 meters when I was a senior in high school. 58 seconds is the world record right now in my age group.
Wow. Can
So,
you tell me specifically what are you doing as far as diet wise? Are you doing any kind of certain regimen, especially for your training?
so at present time, I'm in a pretty good routine of um, 2 cups of coffee. I mean, and I'm not this, it just happens. This is kind of like the routine I fell into, and you could tell me if it's good, bad, or indifferent. I know it's better than what I was doing before. I was just not even, paying attention to it. But I've ritual of a couple bananas in the morning. Love bananas, and spread a couple cups of coffee over an hour and a half, and then I'll have cereal with blueberries. That's my staple. My one of my 4 daughters, my I can't say she's my baby anymore. My little girl. Well, they're all my little girls. She bought me blueberries yesterday, with the mask on and a balloon, and had blueberries attached to it. So love blueberries, and some raisin nut bran. That's a staple. And then my wife um, makes an unbelievable salad, unbelievable. And so we have salad pretty much, 60, 70% of the time. And she's also is the only person that I know that can grill salmon and have it come off the grill perfect, not too dry, not stay, so we do salmon, we do salad and chicken. We do a lot of chicken.
All right, I was just seeing if there was any kind of anything specific, like, okay, I've really cut my carbs, or I'm eating a certain amount of protein. Most people probably don't get this unless they meet him or happen to know quite a few, but I happen to meet over time quite a few professional bodybuilders and or people who are trying to turn pro. But those people seem to be the most knowledgeable on nutrition than anybody I know, because they know how to really either pack on the protein and pack on the weight, then to how to strip it all down to get super lean for their showings and all that stuff.
Right.
And, one of the things I was just curious if there was anything maybe your coach had on you, any type of specific diet that you needed that would help you run faster.
Not specifically to run faster. One of the things coach, is kind of like the obvious, but he will always remind us to hydrate during the day.
Yes, that's great.
Always hydrate.
So on your website, it's newheartforlife.com. You have 4 fitness principles, and I believe you have in the works for a bunch more. Would you mind sharing some of those principles with us?
No, I'd be happy to. So it's New Heart with the number 4, life.com. And then at the very top, it says 21 fitness principles. And then in parentheses, in a word. So they're one word principles. And so I've got, there's 4 of them that are visible right now. I've in an editing process with up to 15. And I've got, I'll have the whole 21 series completed and up on YouTube, but the first 4 will be representative of what's to come, the audience. The first one is decide. And we talked about that, right? Once you make the decision, then universe opens up. And but that decision also has to come from deep within. It's got to be something that you do for yourself, something that is, at a time when we've all had these pivotal, seminal moments. So the decision is not something where you go, hey, I think I'll just go out and get fit. For it to be sustaining, it has to have some meaning and some depth for it, because if not, it's hard to sustain it. So decide is the first principle. The second one is goals. And I talk about that if you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to end up someplace else.
Right.
There's all kinds of passages or phrases like that. But I believe in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. And so having a goal is really important. And I stress and give some examples of some of the goals that I had. And my first goal was in the cardiac ICU unit, and around Christmas time, right? So in December, there was an artificial Christmas tree, Jeff, at the end of the hallway. And in the hospital, after any kind of a procedure, especially in heart, and especially with pneumonia, because they want to prevent pneumonia, they want you to walk and they want you to get up. And my first goal was to walk to the end of the hallway and do a lap around that artificial Christmas tree. And once I got back, it took me about 4 hours just to get myself back together. So have goals, and they can be small in baby steps. In fact, the smaller the goals, the better, because the mind is our worst enemy. It's my worst enemy in terms of, the committee wanting to stay in its comfort zone. And the mind will start to, when there's a big goal out there, and will start to talk us down from that. Certainly it's been my experience. So if you make small goals, and I allude to my goal in the fitness principle number 2, that I just tying up my shoelaces. The mind recognizes that, hey, this doesn't seem like too much of a threat, so I shouldn't have to do too much chatter about why we shouldn't do this and hang around in our comfort zone. So goals is number 2. Number 3 is consistency. That in order to principle that, is true in track, fitness, podcasting, chiropractic practice that you're doing. You've got to be, in order to build trust, in order to build a reputation, in order to really get the most out of things in life and in sports, you have to be consistent. And I talk about the 21-90 rule. 21 days to form a habit, 90 days to adapt the lifestyle. So it takes time to get yourself into a rhythm and a cadence in order to have consistency. And then number 4 would be routine. And routine is, the emphasis with routine is, and this again is not something that comes from a book. I wrote these principles reflecting back on the mistakes that I had made and some of the ups and downs. So I kind of went, well, what did I do wrong? And routine is the main underscore to that principle is that it takes your, again, mind out of the equation, that it allows you to just focus on what you're supposed to be doing for that particular day. We talked about the peak 8, right? Mm-hmm. So your routine is, I'm going to do 8 of these. I'm going to do them at 30 seconds. And then I'm going to walk for a minute and a half, right? Well, once you get to 6 and you feel like quitting, well, can't do it. I got to do 8, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of a routine helps you just to stay focused on what you're supposed to do and takes your mind off of, well, should I be doing it? Should I not be doing it? And so routine is critically important, with the caveat of be focused on a routine, but be flexible. I mean, if you're running, up that hill and, I don't have to tell you, I'm preaching to the converted, and this is your expertise. But if you feel a twinge and some pain, know your body, and then don't do the last 2. Right. I mean, stop, and and it's better to be on the conservative side. So routine is very, very important, and our coach has us show up for practice at a certain time. We stretch, we jog a couple laps, we do those drills. Then he moves us into some interval HIIT type peak training. Then we do a warm down striders, which is, flushing out the lactic acid, with, not at the speed that you're doing with the peak. And then some stretching, and we head home. And so all of a sudden, it really does help get into that habit and allows you to take the thinking out of it, but with the sensitivity of the routine does have to be adjusted based on your, on your health. And that's where you need coaches and chiropractors. I've used chiropractors for my experiences with track, and they've told me you need to start to do some stretches in this area, or you're going to re-pull that muscle. So, so those are the first 4, and there's.
I really like those, and I think you could apply those to any part of life, not just fitness.
Exactly. Right.
I think they're great, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the 21 principles. Now, I believe that you already have these 4 principles in video format on your YouTube channel. That's also New Heart number 4 for life. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, the easiest way to get to it, if you go to newheartforlife.com, the first link up there will be 21 fitness principles, and then click on that link and it'll take you to the YouTube channel.
Right.
And then there's some other information out there if you choose to review it, but that will take you right. It's actually, I've created a playlist. So, I've kind of learned over the last couple months in this period of lockdown, kind of gone to school in this, but it's a playlist. So it will actually from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and then as I turn on the other principles, more to come. And if you subscribe, then you'll be alerted as the next principles are launched.
Yes. Just be sure to hit the notification bell once you subscribe.
Oh, good tip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got a question here. After your experience, do you feel that you interact with people differently after your heart
Oh,
attack experience?
wow. Thank you for the question. Never had that one before. I think that I do because I am less. I mean, I have to call myself on this. I'm less arrogant.
Interesting.
I'm more humbled. I'm more in tune with just how precious life is and how fleeting it can be. And so it has given me a sense of of just being more aware of my interactions with people, and that you never know when you're going to have a last conversation with somebody. And it's also just being in shape and being fit has allowed me to be a role model for my daughters and family, and to be able to be centered. And there's so many benefits that come from fitness, to be centered and to be more aware, and as best I can. And this is something I always try to work on, is actively listen. So yeah, it's had a number of benefits now that I reflect on it, of interacting with people.
What about if you encounter people that are angry and hateful? And maybe that's also, I want to consider not only your interaction with them, and does that kind of tie that into managing your stress?
Wow. So I think that part of my lifestyle has been not a direct result of fitness per se, but just learning the hard way to create boundaries, and and that if somebody is acting out, and they're acting out in a hateful way, in a condescending way, or a way that just pushes my buttons, I tried to one of the gadget tricks that I've learned along the way is I try to observe it like a movie. I mean, if there's a violent movie going on, I don't take it personally. So I try to just observe it as a movie, and I've learned that restraint of tongue and pen or text, right, has really, really come in handy. Now, I say that simple, but not easy. But those are some of the things that I try to do the best I can when I come across somebody that is angry, because it's the tip of the iceberg. They're not, you don't know what that person has gone through or what they're living through. So I try to observe those when I can, and practice those tips.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I would agree with exactly what you're saying. I think it's great. Okay, so you're working on finishing the 21 principles videos. Are you working on anything else that you'd like people to know about?
Yes. Once those are all done, I'll repurpose. There's a tremendous amount of content in those. And I think the way that we absorb content right now is we're all in overload mode, right? Yeah. So, I will start to repurpose bits and pieces of those videos as we have during this interview. And that'll be my second phase, and I'll start to take pieces out, because it's repetition, and you want to try to make it, the principles of marketing that I've learned from my sales and marketing background is that people want to receive information that's useful, that's relevant, and that's personalized, and not drink from a fire hose. So what I will do is start to take those and then start to personalize them, and to try to be relevant and have it be useful, so that there's the different nuggets can help apply to each individual's lives as best we can. And that's going to be an effort in itself. But the content will then allow me. I've written a book in my previous previous years, not on fitness, was about networking, people to people networking.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, writing a book is, you can't, it's useless unless unless you really got a publisher like Simon and Schuster, which I didn't have.
Right.
So having a intentional marketing campaign of trying to find the right groups with the right message will be where I'll take those 21 principles.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to start to do, I'm doing a lot of podcast interviews,
Mm-hmm.
as the one we're doing right now. And I'll start to repurpose those, bits and pieces of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I say during one of my principles of fitness in life, and actually to your point, Jeff, networking. I had to subtitle of my book was on networking. Was networking like life is a process, not an event. Now it's fitness like life is a process, not an event. But I will, as that process goes, one of my nuggets that I share with people is, what is one of the nuggets I share with people? It's more will be revealed. So I don't know exactly what phase 3 will look like, and it will start to evolve. And through perhaps this interview, maybe somebody contacts me, maybe you've given me some thoughts and some suggestions. So I'm keeping my mind open to what phase 3 might look like.
Yeah, it leaves a little bit of mystery when you put it like that. More will be revealed. It's interesting that you said that about books. I had a guest on about a month ago that is an author that has written 24 books. But one thing he happened to say, which I found fascinating, was that it's much harder to market a book than to write the book. Like writing the book is easy. Marketing the book is difficult.
Bingo. I mean, I've experienced that, but he's nailed it. You can only experience. I mean, he knows it. It's build it. Build it. And one of the, I don't want to get up on it. One of the chapters of my networking book was Field of Dreams. I take it off there, but it's about that same concept. Build it, and they will come. No, that's not how the movie played out.
Right.
Kevin Costner had to go out, and Annie had, his wife supported him, so they had to bring people in. So build it and they will come. Ain't happening.
Right. I totally agree. All right, before we wrap it up here, can you share with us or share with the audience one last message?
Okay. I'll keep it simple, to, try to walk the talk in terms of, nuggets. And it's 3 letters. It's 1 word. And the word is ACT. The acronym is Action Changes Things.
Yeah, I like that.
Just stay with that, and more will be revealed.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Dan, thank you so much for spending an hour with me. I really appreciate it. I wish you massive success with your YouTube channel, with your website, and anything else that you're involved with.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I've just really, as not even a side note, just these types of interviews during this time period and allowing me to get to know folks like yourself that are passionate in terms of a platform for getting messages out and the conversation and the relationships that form. I thank you so much for inviting me on, and to your and your audience's new heart for life.
Thank you. All right, Dan, have a good evening.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye-bye.